I don't think I've ever seen a player with a more fascinating fall from grace than Le'Veon Bell. A couple of months ago, we made a video actually on his most recent situation, which honestly kind of irked me personally because I just felt like he was unappreciative of one of the most beloved head coaches in the NFL. When Le'Veon Bell came out and said that he didn't like playing for Andy Reid. Well, we have a very interesting update for you guys. Before we get to the content, I just wanted to remind you guys that if you subscribe and turn on our notifications for this channel, you've entered for a chance to win a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X. Whether you're an old subscriber or a new subscriber, if you have that bell turned on, then you've automatically entered for a chance to win. If you did it 3 months ago, then you've entered for a chance to win. In addition to that, we're giving away Madden 2022 codes on my Instagram and Twitter. All you have to do to enter is follow me there. Now that we got all that out of the way, Brooke. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Microphone coming at you guys live from Capri, Italy. Currently, that's where I am. If you guys have been following me on Instagram, you'd see that I'm currently out of the States right now. It's currently like 12 a.m. as I'm recording this video because I wanted to get it to you guys at a normal hour, and I honestly felt like this was an interesting rumor. Now, it's really important that you guys know that there aren't really any credible sources from this rumor. It's very bottom of the barrel type of stuff that I thought was very interesting, especially if you happen to be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan that happens to be rooting against Le'Veon Bell, or if you're just interested in Baltimore Ravens lore. Now, during the 2017 NFL season, Le'Veon Bell was on the top of the world as one of the NFL's premier rushers, rushing for 1,291 rushing yards, in addition to 655 receiving yards, to go out for 11 total touchdowns for that season. Unfortunately, that also happened to be Le'Veon Bell's contract year, and the way he decided to handle that contract year was very unique. You see, we all know that running backs' value in the NFL is something that isn't really defined. You look at contracts like Ezekiel Elliott's, Christian McCaffrey's, and Alvin Kamara, and you kind of get an idea of how difficult it is to pay a star running back. How much of this running back's success is as a result of his own personal skill versus the offensive scheme he's in and the offensive linemen that are creating holes for him. How much of it is his actual vision versus the situation that he currently is in, and as a result of it, how important is he to the team? Well, that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers and Le'Veon Bell had an impasse. Now, originally, the Pittsburgh Steelers offered Le'Veon Bell a pretty good contract in relation to the going market rate for a NFL running back, and Le'Veon Bell didn't like it because he didn't get paid enough guaranteed money. So as a result, he sat out the 2018 season, and then the year after, he decided to hit free agency and sign with the New York Jets. Something that was perceived as very, very bold, but honestly, I respected it. If that's what he needed to do to get the contract that he wanted, then by all means, go for it. But you see, ultimately, that didn't really pan out. After a year and a half with the New York Jets, not only did Le'Veon Bell not perform well, he was actually seen as a complete shell of his former self. And that's where we have to bring back the question of how much of it is as a result of Le'Veon Bell just not being a good running back versus the fact that he was playing for the lowly New York Jets that didn't really have any other weapons around him, didn't really have a head coach to game plan for him properly, or even a quarterback and a star wide receiver that most defenses would be keying in on. I'm talking about Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, that would keep defenses on their toes and also make it a little bit easier for you to run. And I guess Le'Veon Bell didn't take that into consideration because during his 2019 season, he rushed for a paltry 3.2 yards per carry average, and after 2 games last year with the New York Jets, the Jets saw what they had to see and decided to cut him. He ultimately would sign with the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was something that I was initially intimidated of, but what happened next was very interesting as well. Le'Veon Bell went to the Kansas City Chiefs, got his numbers up to at least something that was a little bit more respectable, a 4 yards per carry average, but he only carried the ball about 63 times. And then in the playoffs, he barely had much of a role, which resulted in him saying some questionable comments about Andy Reid in an Instagram post. In an Instagram post, Le'Veon Bell posts something that says LOL they snapped, and if you scroll down underneath where he says LOL they snapped, you can see Le'Veon Bell responding to a comment, "I'll never play for Andy Reid again, I'd retire first." Now at the time, nobody really knew why Le'Veon Bell said these things. All we could really assume is he said these things mainly because he didn't get that much playing time in the NFL playoffs. But to that I respond like, what were you expecting? Did you expect the Kansas City Chiefs to completely hand the reins to a player that hasn't been a really good running back since 2017? And in addition to this, is coming in during the middle of the season, has to learn a brand new scheme. And of course, that's before we mention that the Kansas City Chiefs just recently drafted a halfback last year in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. When this news came out in June, I initially thought that this could have potentially been career ending for Le'Veon Bell. And honestly, it might still be, unless if this rumor is true. Now, unfortunately, J.K. Dobbins tore his ACL in a preseason game, which congratulations Baltimore Ravens fans, you got your 20th straight win. But as a result, obviously there is a huge hole at the running back position for the Baltimore Ravens, and there are some pretty good veterans that could potentially step in. Now, in this report, there's more than just Le'Veon Bell, but I think Le'Veon Bell might be the most attractive individual to sign with the Ravens potentially. So here's what the report says. News came out on Sunday that Pittsburgh Steelers rival Baltimore Ravens took a big blow to their running back position. J.K. Dobbins suffered a season-ending ACL tear in the Ravens preseason game against the Washington football team. Now, it's been rumored that former Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell is amongst the candidates to replace Dobbins. Now, this isn't the first time he's been linked to the Ravens though, and actually, they're right, because in 2019, Le'Veon Bell kind of flirted with the idea of potentially playing for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I don't know what are the odds of this happening. I thought it was a very cute rumor. That makes a lot of sense because the other player that they suggest that could fill in for J.K. Dobbins would be LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy is way too old to be a bell cow type of running back. Maybe they could even bring in both. I don't really know. In this instance, the Ravens don't really have a choice. Gus Edwards is pretty solid. Maybe they could hit up the Houston Texans and trade for one of their many halfbacks. I don't know why they have so many halfbacks on that team, but they do. But I think the most attractive option is bring in Le'Veon Bell on a veteran minimum. In addition to this, this gives him an opportunity to team up with Greg Roman, who has historically done remarkable work with running backs, which personally is why I was so big on J.K. Dobbins coming into the season. And this gives Le'Veon Bell a chance to somewhat revive his career, clear his name a little bit as a toxic guy potentially, like the thing that went down in Pittsburgh, him, Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and then of course him sitting out for an entire year. His offensive lineman didn't like it. They called him selfish. Ultimately, he goes to the New York Jets. It doesn't work out over there for him. And then after what he said about Andy Reid, one of the most beloved head coaches in the NFL, he may have the perception of being somewhat toxic. So go to the Baltimore Ravens, clear your name a little bit, have a remarkable season, and maybe get a couple more contracts and make some of that money back that you lost out on a couple years ago. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I like to hear what you guys have to say about this news. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.